Be me. Manager of Galliano's restaurant in New Orleans. Closing up the restaurant at night, everyone's gone. It's like 1 a.m. or something, nobody's on the street and the clubs next to the restaurant aren't active on that day. As I'm closing up the bar, I hear a woman audibly in the room say hello. I turn around, nobody is in there. I've had worse paranormal encounters, so I don't panic. I say aloud, I hear you. Close up the doors and walk down the block to our sister restaurant. I knew one of the owners was in there and I wanted to tell him about what happened. Oh yeah, that's her, he says. Tells me that he got a psychic to go there once. A woman was murdered on the second floor a long time ago, apparently. Since then, she sometimes talks but mainly throws shit off the shelves. The only other experience I can remember was me and the bartender just chatting when a bottle flew off the shelf. We both look at each other and just go, oh shit, that happened. She's used to it and cleans up. I continue with counting the cash. Such is life in that shithole of a city. I no longer work there, but because I fucking hate customers. There's a place in my hometown that has a restaurant with a ghost in it too. It likes to hang around the bathroom area, and one of my friends told me once that when he worked there he saw it in the bathroom after hours. It never shows up during when it's open for business, which would make sense since I've never heard or seen anything there and I've been there countless times. There was another time he was stacking chairs and he came across a bunch he knows he didn't do, and that's when he asked the manager and she told him all about it. I think the person was also killed in there, but it was back in the 1960s I think. Don't remember what the ghost looked like. That building has gone through a whole bunch of owners over the years as well. OC story, Grandma is proof of Kundalini energy and its effects on the body. Be from small city in South America, Grandma is a bruja, not witch as English folklore, more like a person that handles a kind of magic. She always had paranormal sensitivity since childhood. When she grew up she took some courses to sort of handle it and put an use to it, like healing. Anyways, at some point in her adulthood she starts craving absurd amounts of water. Like I'm gonna die if I don't drink gallons of it, not to mention spending the day peeing. Goes to local doctor, they have absolutely no idea, so she gets sent to the capital of the country to see specialists. There's a wonky ass coincidence with the doctor involved there, but that's another story. Turns out she has a rare condition called diabetes insipidus, where the pituitary is producing too little of an hormone that regulates thirst. Caused by damage to pituitary, tumors, anything that affects the gland. All tests come back negative, the pituitary is completely normal. Doctor tags it as genetic issue or a super small damage/stroke and gives pills to take for life, no cure for it. Grandma has been taking those for decades, since I was a kid. She always worked on healing herself for years. Recently the thirst went away, she drops the medication. Doc asks for blood work, it's completely normal. Doc is baffled since it's the first time he sees someone cured from that condition out of the fucking blue. We were discussing it the other day and Dad mentions that the courses Grandma took to handle her powers included work with Kundalini energy. She started having issues after these courses. There's a high chance that while working with it, the Kundalini snake damaged her third eye chakra, causing a real-life condition. Decades of energy work managed to heal it. She also healed herself from psoriasis. Wonky ass woman. Be me. 2017. Second worst year of my life. Best friend, we'll call him Martin, offers to take me out hunting with him. We got to Clark County, Alabama, to some land he pays to hunt on. It was a beautiful experience, shot my own 8-point buck on my first night out, relaxed the entire time. 2018. Best friend invites me out again. A month or two before we head out, a huge storm hits the area. When we arrive, the vibe is very different, just feels off, that serene feeling I enjoyed is missing. First night, he drops me off at a place called The Patch. A bare patch of grass forms a huge donut around a series of smaller trees in the middle. Woodland for miles surrounds the hunting post. He leaves to go hunt in another area pretty far off. Tells me he'll pick me up at 8 p.m, it's 4:30 when he drops me off. The post I'm in is one of the shittiest things I've ever been in. Only one person can chill in there, the walls are super thin, there's 4 windows, one in the front, 2 on either side, and a small one on the back wall. The door to get in is only locked by a very shitty hook, it's barely on its hinges. Doesn't bother me at the time because there's no predators in the area besides some big ass hogs. Decide to sit down and chill since I'm gonna be there a while and I was only going to shoot a deer if I could tell it was a cow horn, reed, inbred and a genetic dead end. A few things to note, I had a hunting knife Martin gifted me, one of his rifles with a few bullets in case I needed to take a second shot, a thermal scope, and a high-powered flashlight. There was no cell phone reception, I found that out when I tried texting someone. Some of the other areas had reception, albeit with very poor service. I decided to just chill and enjoy the ambience. It was a pretty afternoon, a few clouds were out, squirrels were jumping around, trees were rustling, the usual. Just as the sun was beginning to set, the ambience drastically changes. All the trees stop rustling, no squirrels, no wind. It goes dead silent. Suddenly feel dread and my body tenses up. From behind me, I can hear something walking towards me. It did not sound like a deer or some hog or anything else. Its gait reminded me of a human's walking through the woods at a pace that implied it was stalking something. I remain perfectly still, making sure my breathing is steady, and I keep my eyes fixed ahead. My hand instinctively grips my knife that's strapped to my chest. Whatever it's behind me keeps moving closer, making no noise besides its footsteps that crunch the leaves. It's still fairly sunny outside, but I did not want to look at it. It moves to my right and stops by that right window. Then it starts exhaling, not inhaling, and exhaling, just exhaling. It was raspy and heavy, like someone had just ran a marathon, but it was inhumanely deep. Something inside my mind is screaming at me to not look at it. If I did look at it, I felt like I was going to die. It sits there, just exhaling and looking at me while I sit like a statue for several minutes. Then it's gone. No running away, no leaves crunching in the distance, just silence again. I stay perfectly still, not wanting to move. Gradually, the ambience returns, the wind rustles the leaves, the squirrels are moving again, and I even see a family of deer appear. I'm too freaked out to leave, I don't even know where my friend is and I can't call him. All I can do is wait. Beyond my paranoia getting to me, nothing eventful happens. My friend ends up picking me up an hour late because he took a shot at a buck and was waiting to see if he would come back. When we get back to our cabin, I spill my beans. He's scared and gets chills. Then he proceeds to tell me about what happened to his little brother years prior. Daniel, Martin's little brother. On a hunting trip with Martin and his dad. Hunting in an area called the Meadow. It's an area with extremely tall grass and a patch that leads into the forest. The hunting stand is raised pretty far off the ground, probably 8 to 10 feet off the ground. While hunting, Daniel's chilling on his phone when the same thing happens. Wind stops, grass stops rustling, no animal ambience. Then he hears footsteps approach him from the tall grass. There's only one window on the stand and it doesn't look at the surrounding fields. The footsteps slowly walk up to the stand and then stop directly underneath him. He freaks out, starts texting his family to come get him immediately, too scared to call or make any noises. Martin and his dad drive out to get him and find nothing under the stand. Daniel never hunted in that area again. The strange thing is that Martin and I hunted there and nothing ever happened. 2019. Martin invites me to go hunting with him and Daniel. I politely refuse. While chilling in the cabin late at night, the both of them hear something knock on the side wall near the living room. 3 knocks in normal succession. Martin goes out to see what could make that noise, armed of course. Nothing. Not even 30 minutes later, the same knocks occur in the living room where they are. Once again, he goes out but there's nothing there, no tree or branch knocking. Keep in mind, this cabin is boonfuck nowhere, there isn't another house or cabin in the area for another mile. Martin is someone who absolutely would shoot someone. He's actually killed an illegal before since they were stealing thousands of dollars from his business. Nothing happened after that, but it shook Martin and his little brother. Conveniently, they purchased their own property in Mississippi and now hunt there. I have no idea what happened, neither does he. Doesn't seem like a Bigfoot story or anything else I've heard of. Really weird. Alright. I'm back. Now for my doppelganger story. Senior year of high school. I'm at home with my girlfriend. The time has come for me to bring her home. She lives just outside my neighborhood, no more than 10 minutes. Leave my room, keeping the door open since it's very dark on the second floor of my house. My dad's asleep and my mom's watching TV in the living room. Get in my car and bring her home. When I get back home, as soon as I walk through the door my mom asks me in surprise, "You're leaving again?" "What are you talking about? I just got home." "No you didn't. You came home just a few minutes ago. You walked right past me and didn't even say anything. You just walked up to your room and closed the door like you were upset." I didn't know how to react to this, so I just repeated that I had just gotten home, but I was very creeped out. I slowly walked upstairs and, sure enough, my bedroom door was closed. I burst through and checked everything. Nobody was there. Grabbed my shitty .22 rifle and started looking through the entire second floor, but I couldn't find anything. Lots of paranormal shit had been happening in my life at that point and the whole situation was freaking me out. After ensuring that nobody could have been upstairs, I walked back down and asked my mom if she was messing with me. From the look on her face, I could tell she wasn't. I asked her to tell me exactly what she saw. She said that she remembers me walking in through the garage door, past her on the couch, and then walking upstairs. It was wearing the exact same outfit as me. I asked her if she was able to look at its face, but she told me no. She tried initiating a conversation, but I didn't respond at all. Nothing like that happened again, but it fucked with me for a few days. Be toddler me. Yank all of the knobs off of Dad's stereo. Show him what I did. Drop all knobs onto his lap as he's reading the paper. Dad chases me into the kitchen. Because I have one more knob. I chuck that thing hard onto the floor. He searched up and down. Again and again. Then adjoining rooms. My mom looks for it. I look for it. Knob is never found. Decades pass. My face when I realize I chucked an Altec Lansing stereo knob into another dimension. I used to be a sailor. I won't go in depth into my background, that's all you need to know. It was a top secret expedition. I have years of experience in the field, served in the Navy for 20 some odd years. I had connections and I was trusted, and that was the long and short of it. Whatever was going down, no one was supposed to know. Certain higher-ups in the government and the people I was transporting. Even I only knew the bare minimum. A cardinal direction, vague coordinates, and strict rules to follow. I was told it wouldn't take too long. Nothing extreme, nice, and easy. Straight out and then back. I'm on death row. Not literally, but I'm in poor health. My sailing days are long over and this took place years ago now. I won't give my name, but even if I did, it doesn't really matter now. The sail seemed pretty routine until I learned of the cargo. Special Forces. Not any branch I'd ever heard of, All wore these creepy masks. Wooden ones, carved. Holes for the eyes, weird patterns like swirls carved into them. They never ever took them off. Not around me at least. Still to this day I have no idea who these people were. They wore tactical gear and were fully kitted out. I wasn't sailing in any usual dinky boat. I was graciously provided with a top-class vessel. Bigger than I was used to sailing on my own time. I was provided with a few other crew members. These ones weren't masked, just run-of-the-mill deckhand types. Said they were in it to gain prestige and recognition. Said they messed up in the Navy and this was their chance to be redeemed instead of a dishonorable discharge. We had plenty of supplies provided. Enough for a month even though it was probably a week-long journey tops. These special forces, they wouldn't interact with any of us. Would just shove past. I could feel them glaring at me with horrible expressions even though I couldn't actually see them. They wouldn't even directly speak to any of us. They would write down commands and hand them for us to follow. It was uncomfortable but not something I was unfamiliar with. I knew their type. We were also assigned a captain. Real hard ass. Didn't know him personally but I was definitely aware of him in my time of service. He was the only one they would talk to but only ever in private quarters. Each time the captain would speak to them he would come back looking different. Visibly afraid. Sweating sometimes. The rest of the crew would gossip. I knew better than to do something so stupid. They would make jokes about the elites and government conspiracies. Honestly I just wanted to get it over and done with. Took us a while but we finally set sail. And not long after we set sail, we got called in for a meeting. The captain informed us that the plan had changed. That we couldn't be trusted with confidential information while we were still docked. Our destination had changed. And he still wouldn't tell us the purpose of the mission. He handed each of us a plastic bag. A vial and a needle inside all of them. Multiple vials. Looked like a week's worth. The crew joked and laughed saying we would be shooting up. The captain was stern-faced and told us not to lose it. To not use it until we were instructed to, otherwise things would not go well for us. That shut everyone up. Night was closing in fast and we were told to rest up and that the journey would be more demanding starting tomorrow. One of the crew members didn't listen. Andrew his name was. He said screw it. He wanted to find out what it was. It looked like some green congealed substance. Nothing any of us had ever seen before. He injected it into his arm without missing a beat. The reaction was strange. At first we thought he was having a seizure. We started panicking, freaking out. But all of a sudden he just sat up straight like he'd just woken up suddenly. Like he had been called to attention. His pupils looked crazy. Bigger than I had ever seen. And his iris. It wasn't its usual brown anymore. It had streaks of green. The veins were all stressed and almost popping out. We tried to ask him what was going on, but he didn't respond to us. Just sat up straight looking forward into the distance. This lasted all fucking night. When the captain came in and saw it, he had a look of desperation on his face. All he said was fuck you idiot. He ordered him to get up and to follow him immediately. This fucking guy did exactly that. Almost robotically. The motions weren't fluid at all. He got up in like, stages. Janky movements. But he did exactly what was told of him. The special forces heard the commotion. It was the first time we ever heard them talk. They were angry at the captain. Asked why he couldn't control a set of simple idiots. They ordered the crew member. Used his name, told him to walk to the edge of the boat. Walk straight there with no hesitation. Then they tell him to take all of his clothes off. We're all muttering to each other, as quietly as we can. We have no idea what is going on right now. The instant the order is spoken, he has already stripped off. It gets even worse. They tell him to go for a swim. No hesitation. He just jumps straight into the water. The water is freezing. Enough for hypothermia to set in after only 30 minutes. We hear a loud splash, but the captain doesn't stop the boat. We continued on like nothing happened. The captain came back to us and told us to rest up and to forget anything ever happened. None of us could sleep. It got worse the following day. Bright and early we were all lined up on the deck. The special forces were all present and actually spoke directly to us. Told us that we needed to inject ourselves immediately for protection. There was some muttering and an attempt to ask questions, but we were told very quickly to shut up and to follow orders. One of the guys was having none of it. You could tell he was a real dissenter. Struggled with authority. Wanted to show himself as a hard ass and cause trouble. He straight up refused to take it. Got right up in the special forces guy's face and told him to go to hell. It happened in a split second. Produced a Colt and shot him directly in the head. Instant kill, execution style. There were a few gasps, but most held their breath. They told us that not following orders would receive a harsh punishment. I grit my teeth and swallowed. I had no choice. I injected the vial into my arm. It was the most surreal experience of my life. I'm not sure I can even describe it correctly. At first I had severe heart palpitations, but I didn't react as badly as Andrew had. It was painful and I felt uncomfortable, but after 5 minutes it gave way. It was an insane feeling. Like I was just a passenger in my own body. Like there was a visor over my vision and everything felt light and cloudy. It was like I wasn't viewing things through my eyes, but instead above. It's like I was watching from above my forehead slightly. It was a euphoric rush to begin with, but after a few minutes it cooled and I felt like I was really cold. My body wasn't shivering, but I felt really cold. I could still move my body, but it was like the signals sometimes didn't get through. I tried to lift my arm up to look. My movement felt floaty and it was like I was fighting my own brain to move it. It took what felt like forever. The veins in my forearms were really pronounced and had that same tinge of green again. It was hard to think straight. I felt cold and panicked, but it was like the panic couldn't actually get through. Like the feeling was there and I knew it was present, but it was like, partially blocked. Numbed almost. That's when the orders started. I don't remember everything exactly. Everything felt so surreal and ethereal. It was basic things at first. Ordered to walk around, to do push-ups, laps around the deck. I did all of it with no thought. It was weird though. I didn't want to disobey anyway. I didn't want to be shot, I wanted to just get on with it. But even before my eye had fully processed what was being said, I had already started doing it. The special forces had only just finished their sentence and I had already immediately broken out into a run. I felt scared. I was worried about what was going to happen. But I just completed the order. I didn't shake or tremble or shiver or even hesitate for a moment. I could think and feel, but I couldn't actually disrupt anything. After a few basic orders, the special forces asked the captain to be involved in the next test. He looked even more scared than usual. The captain hadn't taken anything. They said something I didn't expect. They told us to grab him and tie him up. The captain immediately turned to run, but the same special forces guy shot him in the leg to stop him. Every single one of us ran toward the captain immediately. He tried to fight back, tried to push us away, but I remember hitting him in the face a few times to get him to comply. None of us said a word at all. We didn't ask him to calm down or to stop. We just grabbed him, and it's like we knew when to use force and how much. I just remember in my head asking why and wanting to stop. But my body moved on its own. I couldn't delay myself for even a second. We eventually roughed him up enough that he didn't have the energy to fight us all of. We ended up tying him up with some rope we had spare. The special forces guys started speaking again. They told us how the captain was actually a traitor. That he had been leaking details of this secret project to our enemies and that he needed to be punished now. The captain was screaming the whole time, denying the whole thing, but he got hit repeatedly by the special forces in order to shut him up. They told us that it was our duty to ensure he was punished. This was such bullshit. I scoffed when I heard what they were saying, but it only happened in my head. They told us to throw him overboard. In my mind I was planting my feet, refusing to take another step. Even if it meant being killed, I would not be a part of something so wrong and disgusting. By the time I had this thought and came back to Earth, we had already thrown him over the side of the ship. A splash followed by a long, haunting silence. I was almost crying, but my mouth and my face, there was nothing coming out. I was crying only to myself, in my own head. The memories after this get fuzzier. I remember being ordered to damage the ship, to make it look like an accident. I recall a blur of people throwing items overboard, taking axes and other weapons to the ship. I remember lighting a match inside the captain's quarters. I didn't even light it. I didn't even walk there. It's like I just appeared there with the match already in my hand. I went to grab my arm and stop myself with my other hand, but it wouldn't move and the match was already on the ground. I remember being given one final order. I don't know what happened to everyone else, but there was just me and one other crew member on the deck. A meek fellow. One who was brought in to have a second chance. We were staring at each other, our eyes locked. One of the special forces handed me a gun. Told me to cock it. I couldn't even stop myself. I was screaming but nothing was happening. Even though he was showing no emotion, just a dead stare, I swear I could see a slight tremble of his lip and a glossy look to his eye. I was ordered to shoot. I was shocked by a sudden bang. I saw what happened. I saw what my hands did. I saw what my body did. I just didn't believe it. Then they told me to point the gun at myself. I did it instantly. I don't know what exactly was happening, but my hands were actually starting to tremble. My knees were actually wobbling. I was trying to close my eyes, but I only managed to get them halfway. I still had to look. They noticed. And they talked. I was stood like this, shaking, not knowing when they were going to tell me to pull the trigger for at least 30 minutes. If I had control, I would have pissed my pants. They talked to each other and then on the radio to someone. At the end of the 30 minutes I was told at ease. And then I got hit in the back of the head. I don't really know what happened after that. I remember flashes of things. The ship gradually becoming more engulfed in flames, being dragged to shore, being put in the back of a vehicle. Nothing concrete though. Felt almost like a dream sequence. Then I woke up back home. No calls, no explanation, but I did receive payment in full. More than that. I received my share multiple times over, enough to pay every crew member on board. I don't know why the fuck they changed their minds or what this meant. I've lived as silently as I possibly could since it happened. I just want to know why. Why me? Why us? What was actually happening? I don't even know how to tell this without it reading like fiction. I know there's a lot of LE insider here and all of that stupid shit, but seriously, I have kept this inside for a long time. I figured this was the best place for it. Either I'm not believed, and no one cares, or even if you do it'll just be played off as classic schizos and nothing will come of it. With that out of the way, I'll tell you straight up. I'm a government employee. Not former, I still work at the same place. I'm gonna be vague about my role, but honestly, even if they find out who I am, it changes nothing. It changes nothing for me or for you. In my department when I was first hired, there was a story that used to go around the office. Just one of those lame campfire tales. The oh so spooky kind. I figured it was just an initiation thing to freak out newbies. It was a story about what happens when you reach a higher clearance level. The exact level is always vague and changes every time. Everything else about the tale stays the same though. You get pulled into a meeting. And they show you a presentation. They pull out some dinky laptop, give a bit of an introduction and then show you a video that contains all the world's secrets. The exact contents vary from alien races we're in contact with to things like UFOs in the ocean and other black projects. I was obviously very low level when I joined. But after almost 20 years in the service, I eventually did reach the required clearance level. Like I said, I'll be keeping my exact role quite vague, but it does not involve anything to do with black projects or insane government secrets. Just boring things to do with file management, man management, and bureaucracy. Overall a pretty inconsequential role in the grand scheme of things, but one that someone has to do. Over the years we have had many top secret meetings happening in the building, but usually about mundane matters, or so I was led to believe. I usually had a very busy schedule and had to focus hard to get my work done. Insert joke about lazy government workers not doing any real work here. This meant that I really did have the time to even wonder what anyone else was doing. All I will say is that I am based in New York. Even with things like this urban legend, I just dismissed it and went about my day. I'm kind of not a shy guy, but I like to keep to myself and just get shit done. The type to leave everything at work, not really interact with my coworkers and go straight home on time and relax. I didn't want any drama and I am a strict rule follower. I just don't have the energy it takes to do anything more. One night I was working overtime. I avoided it as long as I could, but I had an avalanche of work and I basically got stuck. It must have been maybe 10 p.m. There were a lot of people working late. Not unusual, it was basically crunch time. I get a call at my desk. Basically just, hey, yeah, we know you're busy, everyone is, but we've got an important meeting that basically only happens once a year, get up here now. Pretty annoying all things considered. I wasn't prepared for the meeting I was about to have. I take the elevator and went up to the 10th floor. The building I work in is absolutely massive, lots of people, always a buzz. The corridors here were empty. The only signs of activity were coming from the meeting room. This wasn't a regular meeting room, it was more like an assembly hall you would see at a school. This was the first time I'd seen it. I had never had any reason to be up here. There's a guy at the door I don't recognize and he beckons me over. Two of them actually. Suited up, dark shades, earpieces on. I mean, we have security in the building for sure, but not up here. They tell me, hey, the meeting is about to start, you need to hurry up. Really commanding. Like, come on man, I don't even know you. If I was another guy I probably would have cussed them out, asking them who they were to talk to me like that. But I just went straight in. Also very weirdly, they made me put my phone in like a security box before I went in. No recording, meeting is top secret, yada yada. Gave me a pat down too. Fucking weirdos. There were hundreds of people in here all chatting amongst themselves. Lots of people very curious as to what was happening. There was water and food available for everyone, but I didn't feel all that hungry. I just wanted it to be over so I could finish up and go home. Man in a brown suit walks towards the front of the room and begins to speak. There's a projector screen set up behind him with a laptop. He starts with an intro speech about how once the meeting starts we cannot leave until it's over no matter what. That the security outside will ensure that nothing leaks outside this room. My heart was actually beating quite fast at this point. This did not seem like some boring seminar. Definitely didn't seem like we were going to be told we were getting bonuses for the year either. There were now 2 other security guards inside this room too. Standing behind the guy speaking and in the corners. Same attire as the guys outside. He goes off on a long spiel about classified emails we had to read through and NDA forms we had to sign. I'll admit I kinda just marked the email as read because I didn't have time and was gonna get to it later. The NDA I just thought was related to my current project. Whoops. He tells us we're welcome to grab more water or something to eat while the presentation is ongoing, but that we must pay full attention. Bathroom breaks are basically only allowed if it is urgent, and we will be escorted out by a guard. And of course he rattles on about the NDAs and speaking to people who do not have clearance about the presentation. He dims the lights and tell us to prepare for what we're about to see and to let it all digest before reacting. You might be angry, you might feel scared, but please do not act irrationally. We have security here for the safety of everyone, including yourself. The projector starts to play a video. It had a lot of intros and logos about how the video was classified and penalty of death stuff. CIA logos, government logos, lots of the ones you would expect. The final logo is one I don't recognize. It's a globe with 7 stars around it. The stars are gold, but the globe is largely in red with hints of blue. There's a subtitle underneath after a second. Earth Coalition Authority. That's definitely a new one. The video starts and you immediately see a podium. Looks like it's in a basement of some kind. Open and spacious but quite dark and looks really eerie. The person on the podium is Richard Nixon. W the fuck. It's like Congress if it were held in an underground military bunker. Lots of seats. Huge security detail. Nixon looks nervous as fuck. Like, it's palpable. The whole room is like deathly silent. The camera is a close-up of him for about a minute straight, then zooms out slightly and pans across. It's not just him and his security up there. There are 3, I don't even know. Things. 7 feet tall and hunched over. Their limbs are elongated and sinewy. They're blue in color, like a deep washed out blue. Their heads are like, stretched backwards slightly. Like they have something protruding out the back of their skulls, but that's just their actual skull. The eyes are basically just voids in the skin. No noses. They're just standing, leering, towering over the president and staring out at the crowd, filled with politicians from the time period and other higher-ups. Not strictly American politicians either. The Prime Minister of Canada, of the UK. Representatives from Germany, France, Italy. I'm sure there were more. Not sure exactly what year this is. Nixon begins speaking. His voice is really shaky, but like he's trying to conceal it. Members of the Earth Coalition Authority, I thank you for gathering here today. As you can see, we have benevolent visitors here today who have graciously accepted this meeting. I know this may seem quite daunting at this current time, but I assure you this is the right choice. I know you may think the recent assassination to be drastic action, but allowing dissent from the most powerful country on our planet would lead to unfathomable consequences for all of us. Holy shit, what the fuck is he talking about? This decision has not been an easy one, but we have fortunately reached a majority vote. We are immensely grateful to our esteemed visitors who gave us the opportunity to come to this decision. I suddenly felt very sick. This had to be a joke. I didn't have time for something as stupid as this. Another work stood up out of his seat and loudly exclaimed that he had better things to do and walked to the exit. The 2 security guys at the door grabbed him and he shouted at them and attempted to pry their hands off him. They asked him politely to sit back in his seat, but he was having none of it. They punched him and told him he could either sit down and finish or he would be dealt with. The video didn't stop for the interruption. I want to thank all the nations of the world for making the right choice. For those who voted against this, we are still grateful for accepting the decision of the majority. I will outline this decision and then we will have a word from our guests. This is a pivotal moment in our history and one I am sure we will look back on with gratitude. We were faced with two options, extinction or entering into this agreement, and I'm sure you can see that this is preferable. I still had no idea what was going on. If this was actually really, then why are we being shown this? We do important work, we aren't nobodies, but even so it felt like we weren't people who should have been seeing this thing. I've worked with countless classified files and top secret information, but none of it compared to whatever this is. I am officially announcing that we have entered into the agreement proposed by our esteemed guests. They have volunteered the name Orlith for their species in our native English. In the proposed agreement, the Orlith will allow our species to survive and to continue to inhabit the earth and use it as we see fit. To grow, to populate, to invent, and to advance. In return for this, the Earth Coalition Authority, which is comprised of 127 sovereign nations, will adhere to the following laid out by the Orlith. I was still in complete shock at this point. I didn't even know what to think. The Orlith retain the right to visit Earth whenever they so please. The Orlith have the right to consume humans on Earth at their own discretion, with the exception of key individuals needed to ensure the continuation of the agreement and the balance of power here on Earth. We have a duty to ensure that enough humans are prepared when required, the number of which will be requested before arrival. These humans can be taken from anywhere, so long as we maintain a cover story to not arouse suspicion of the population at large. This includes terror attacks, human trafficking rings, staged wars across Earth, disease outbreaks, the works of criminals and crime syndicates, and any other event deemed fit. We agree to maintain the secrecy and to ensure that history is written to conceal the work of any external forces. I wanted to run out of the room hearing all of this, but I knew I'd just be punched for my efforts. It all felt so surreal. Like a parody of real life. Our guests have graciously agreed to delay their next visit due to our willingness to accept the agreement they have put forth. The last time they visited, we failed to accept and honor the terms they provided, and so they took more than they intended. The next visit will take place in the 50 to 55 years, followed by a visit around 100 years after, with subsequent visits to be agreed upon at a later date. We will now hear from our guests for a brief moment. One of those things walked over. It was so large you could see it clearly from a camera placed at the back of the room. It didn't speak for long. Its voice was higher pitched than I expected. It clearly only had a basic grasp on the English language. It introduced itself in the most basic way possible. Everything it said was incredibly blunt. Humans in room are safe, rest of Earth is food. If we don't like who you give, we will take more. We want them alive or the deal is no good. I think I shit my pants in fear. I felt my heart skip and like an immense pressure weighing down on it. Then the thing said that it was going to provide a demonstration. That it needed to set an example and give humanity a permanent reminder of the deal they agreed to. If you break it, this will be all of you. I watched as a door to the left of the podium opened up that the camera panned to. They brought out a man within shackles, wearing something covering his face so he couldn't bite. He was in a prison outfit. Nixon announced on the podium that the man was due to be given the death sentence a week prior, but that he was given an extension to be used today. He said that considering the things he had done, they should not feel guilty. They put the man on his knees facing the thing. I only caught a glimpse of his face as he was now facing away from the camera, but I had never seen so much uncontrollable fear. He was crying when they walked him in. Full on sobbing, like he was a child. On his knees he couldn't stop shaking. This was the worst part. I watched as the creature unhinged its entire jaw and put it around this man's head. The screaming and the writhing by not just him, but everyone in the room was horrible to watch. The man did not stop screaming in agony the entire time. The creature let out some sort of liquid all onto the man. It was corrosive. It dripped and caused slight burn marks on the prison outfit. The jaw unhinged more and more as the creature eventually had this entire person in its mouth. Still screaming. Around 10 minutes in total of this until the man couldn't be seen or heard anymore. Some people in the room threw up. The thing finished and they all left. The meeting concluded quite solemnly. No one had any real words. Nixon gave a small outro speech and so did other world leaders. Next it boiled down to just telling the room not to feel guilty and that they had no choice to survive. They didn't even look like they believed it themselves. The video ended. The speaker came back to the front and apologized that we had to watch the entire thing but assured us it was required. I don't know if he was taking questions but I put my hand up and asked why we were shown this. He told us it was part of the agreement. That members of a certain ranking and clearance would be required to watch this video to ensure that no mutiny would take place and the agreement would be upheld. To ensure that we would obey. We were encouraged to get a glass of water and just sit for a minute. That it would be best for us to sit and process. They continued through some legal reminders about the consequences of sharing this information but remarked that therapy would be available free of charge as long as this topic was not spoken about. The world didn't feel real anymore. It didn't feel like I was really there. We were told we could take a day off in light of these events but that we needed to come in the following day as appearances needed to be kept up. So yes/x/, I guess that's about all I have to say. I know it reads like a creepypasta and I don't blame you if you looked at this and scoffed, but this is my reality. Our reality.
Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army. Army officers say the missile...
Are you a targeted individual? Have you had a paranormal encounter, or are the victim of an unregulated government experiment and would like to share your story with us? Would you like to send us some fan mail or a hate-filled rant? Do you have an idea for a future episode or wish to send a complaint to HR? Email us at atomicshamanSweatlodge@protonmail.com. Like, share, subscribe and be sure to check the notification bell. Follow the Atomic Shaman on Twitter at Motel and RV Park. Listen to Paranormal Green Text Stories on Atomic Shaman TTS on YouTube. Catch the live streams of Atomic Shaman Sweat Lodge only on Rumble.